and welcome back to another episode of the Pure Nintendo podcast. My name is Jemma. With me this week, I have my good friend Kirk. Welcome back, Kirk.
Good to be here. Hi, everyone.
Hi. We're lacking Trev this week. He's on hiatus this week, so we have another duo to the Kirk and Jemma show today. And it's been another interesting week, and I think we've got a few things to talk about today. We're going to go into a new Lego announcement. We're going to talk about some Fire Emblem DLC. We're going to delve into our love for RPGs, and then we'll continue on our eShop discussion because the date is looming. It's very close now that it's closing. And then we'll talk about some games that we're playing. So a few things on the list for this week, but let's kick things off with what I think was a pretty exciting announcement during the week. There was a new Lego game announced called Lego 2K Drive, and the trailer dropped during the week. A bit of a surprise. Now, I'm a huge fan of Lego games. How do you feel about Lego games? Kirk, how are you feeling about these in general?
I'm a bit mixed on Lego, mainly because I think a lot of them, they're just kind of the same thing with different themes. So if you're into the theme, like if you're into Star Wars, you play that one, you love it. If you're into Indiana Jones, you play that one and you love it. But if you're only mildly into these things, like if there was a Lego Flash Gordon, I would be all over that. That's never going to happen. But yeah, I'm big into Flash Gordon, so I would love Lego Godzilla. But I will say that Lego City Undercover is one of my favorite games of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love that. And I think it's because it wasn't tied to a theme. Mm-hmm. And the whole open world sort of like Grand Theft Auto approach to it was so funny with the Lego characters. I just absolutely love that game. Yeah,
same. That has to be one of my favorite games just in the last, 10 years or whatever, on the Wii U and then on the Switch. It's fantastic. I would tell anyone who cares to listen about how great that game is. So definitely agree with you there. And I'm a bit the same, I suppose. And you're exactly right. They are a little hit and miss, and it is about the theme. We have quite a few Lego games. I have a son who's very into Lego, like the physical Lego building, so that helps. Mm-hmm. But some are better than others. I'm not super even though I love the Marvel movies, I didn't gel with the Marvel game as much as, say, the Star Wars game. But it is great that there are so many to choose from, so that if someone is into something like, well, I mean, I would actually really love to see a Godzilla version, to be honest. I think that'd be
I don't know how they would do it, but
I don't know either.
I would play it nonetheless.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. Lego City Undercover. Do you know, I've always wondered why they haven't done a sequel to that or DLC or something.
They did have was it a prequel or something that was on the 3DS?
That's true.
In fact, that may be one that's available to hurry up. We'll talk about that in a bit, but see if that's available on the eShop. Grab that before it's gone.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm surprised too. I don't know why they didn't.
Yeah, I thought it did well. I mean, it was good enough to port because it was a Wii U exclusive originally, and then eventually it was ported to other consoles, including the Switch. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like it must have been well praised enough for that to occur. Anyway, I don't know. We can always live in hope. You never know what the future holds. Everything comes back around eventually. They're always rebooting and rejuvenating things.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's because it wasn't attached to a franchise. Like a lot of people are going to buy Marvel just because it's Marvel. But the Lego City Undercover, if it's not there's not a movie theme, then maybe some people just weren't giving it a chance.
True. And there was I think I heard there was something going on with the studios that create the Lego games, and maybe was it Warner Brothers? I think there was some kind of change in structure or some ownership, or maybe that was to do with the movies more than the games, but something behind the scenes maybe has caused that also to happen. But anyway, this new one, it looks like another open world style adventure, but based on driving. So there's races to be had, cars to build, and adventures, I suppose, to go on. It looks... it's hard to tell from the trailer. It's obviously very centered around driving. It's called Drive. So it's all about the customization by the looks of it, and you can build your own car. There's apparently thousands of pieces to choose from that you can customize this thing to your whatever whim you want to create. So in the trailer, there's some pretty funny looking cars, like a chicken vehicle. which I kind of love. So I can see one of my kids doing that because he just seems to be obsessed with weird things like that. Like he would build a Lego chicken vehicle. That would be his thing for sure. Whereas my other son,
And I love that part in the trailer where the chicken car was debating whether it wanted to cross the road. You're like, don't do it.
Don't do it.
This isn't going to end well. And sure
that
enough.
was a nice touch. Yeah. Sure.
A very Lego humor type touch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I do like the humor. And I love the Lego movies. I know there's Lego shows as well that my kids are really into that we've watched. It's a huge franchise. It's obviously been around a very long time. So I love that they keep coming up with new ideas. Last year we had, I have to think of the title, but there was Brick Tales, Lego Brick Tales, which was a sort of another little departure from the typical Lego sort of genre or plot, I suppose. It wasn't just a Marvel kind of thing. It was a standalone story, and it was more about the building, which was really fun. It was a nice take on it, and I really enjoyed that one. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. It comes out in May, so we've got a couple of months still, but I thought that was a fun announcement and something that I'm very much looking forward to trying. So we'll see when that comes out. We'll have more. I'm probably going to get it because it is Lego and I have, like I said, a kid who loves Lego. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, I'll be able to talk more about that in the future.
Yep. And I wonder if that'll appeal more to fans of the Lego City Undercover because there was a very large driving component in that game.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of driving mini games that you have to do. Because when I first saw this, I thought it was just racing. But now that after I watched the trailer, I'm wondering if a lot of it is mission oriented, where you have to get to a certain point or hit certain checkpoints within a certain amount of time, like you had to in Lego City Undercover. So now those parts of that game were some of the most frustrating to me. But a whole game centered around it might not be quite so stressful. So I'm looking forward to giving it a shot.
Yeah, I hope they pull it off. And we even pulled out Lego City Undercover like 2 weeks ago. My son just felt like playing it. And I don't know if you know this, Kirk. I do mention this sometimes, but Lego City Undercover is the most played game on our Switch. Like if you order your Switch titles by time played, Lego City Undercover is the top. Nothing can beat it. Not Mario or Mario Kart or, Zelda. Nothing comes close. It's just always there. And we haven't played it much at all in the last maybe 2 years, but we did pull it out recently. And what we do, because we have not quite 100%ed it, but we've like 99%ed it. But what we do is we just chase each other around the city in cars. Like my son will be a cop and I will be a robber and I will just have to escape from him and he has to catch me.
Yeah.
So we still do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about that game is even after you have the story done or, you could still just continue to play it as if it's a Lego town that you built. You get to run around it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I will also say that game came out for the Wii U soon after my third child was born, after Max was born. And my wife was home on maternity leave. And she did get 100% completion. That's how she passed her time. But before she went back to work, when Max was sleeping, she was playing Lego City Undercover. And she got 100%. I think I stopped at around 97 or 98.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, looking at the Wii U, I would bet that has more hours sunk into that game than anything else, too. Because all of us played it. And all of us loved it.
That's so cool. That's awesome. And yeah, my son was born around the same time as well. So I definitely spent a lot of time. That's why when it came out on the Switch, I was so excited because it has the co-op or the 2-player kind of element. Yes. And I'm like, I need to play this with my son. So, and as predicted, he loved it and we've sunk a lot of time into it. Anyway, so that's exciting. The other kind of news that came out during, I believe it was last week or recently anyway, was an update to the upcoming Fire Emblem Engage DLC. So we've kind of talked about this in the magazine. I know you did a bit of an article on what we can look forward to this year from Fire Emblem. What was recently announced? What's the latest news in that area?
Well, I think the most surprising news about the whole thing is how quickly all the DLC came out for Fire Emblem. Like if I'm looking at Xenoblade Chronicles, that takes place at like 9, 10 months, 12 months before they got everything done. And Wave 4, which is bringing us a whole new story and new characters as opposed to just, bringing in some characters from previous games and a couple of paralog missions. It all happened within about 3 or 4 months. So that surprised me most. I still have not done the last DLC. I haven't gone in and played the paralogs to get those characters yet.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit behind. I need to get back to it. But it looks like this is what they're doing is kind of twisting it. They're putting us in sort of like another universe or take on it where the main characters in the game are now on the Fell Dragon side, although they're setting it up so it looks like I shouldn't say the main characters. The main character you could play as a male or female. But taking from the point of view that side maybe are now the good guys. So you're fighting a lot of the people that were on your side in the main story. I don't know what the twist on that is going to be. If it's, it could be a dream, it could be an alternate universe, it could be in the future where something happens. There's going to be something that will trigger all this. And then the trailer ends with a comment where the hero says, something like, we did everything you asked. It sounds like he got stabbed. I did everything you asked. So, but it doesn't show you who did the stabbing. It doesn't show what was asked. So it'll be curious to see what happens. But that's all coming out April 4th.
Right. Which is very soon.
Yep. So if you haven't finished Fire Emblem Engaged, hurry up, get to it.
That would be
finished, and then although you could probably play this individually, I have the feeling that even if you haven't finished Fire Emblem Engage, you can just launch this as a completely separate component and play it on the side, which I'm pretty sure. I haven't been on it in a while, but I'm pretty sure that's how the extra chapters for Three Houses worked.
Cool. So what wave of DLC is this one?
This is the fourth. It is coming. I think it's coming with some new characters too. They're definitely the two people who have never been in the Fire Emblem universe before, but maybe some others with it. But it's the fourth, and I believe it's the final one.
Okay. Yep. That is quick. You're right. I mean, it's April. Well, when it comes out, it'll be April. And this game came out in January. So that's a lot in a pretty short amount of time relative to other games. Even Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC has been announced, but we haven't got it yet. And I don't think it's out till the spring-ish. No, it is spring right now, isn't it? Autumn? I don't know. It's not out till later this year. So, yeah, that's a really quick turnaround, which, I mean, I suppose it makes sense to kind of roll out different DLCs for different franchises at different times. Maybe, I don't know if they have a plan in terms of, it's kind of like a release schedule, isn't it? They've got big games coming out at different times. We've got Zelda coming up and Pikmin. Maybe this fills the void for this period of time in April. DLC for Pokemon later on when there's maybe a bit of a gap. Not sure. Yeah,
and to maybe push it out ahead of Breath of the Wild. I imagine, the games aren't similar, but I imagine there's a lot of overlap in the type of people who like to play those big, grand adventures, regardless of how the combat takes place. But my main hope is that and this is just me dreaming. I have absolutely no belief that this is going to happen, although I've been wanting it forever, as have others, that they're pushing this out because we're finally going to get some previous Fire Emblem games remastered for the Switch, or at least released like as a package, going back to the GameCube and the Wii, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. Would absolutely love to see those games roll out. So maybe they are planning on doing that and wanted to wrap this up before they get over to that.
Yeah, that's very possible. You don't think that's likely, though?
Well, there's... Again, I'm just being optimistic. I think it's possible. I think Ike, the hero of those two stories, has traditionally been one of the more popular characters. He was in this game. They brought in Micaiah from Radiant Dawn, and she was in this game. So maybe there is a little more interest. And I can't imagine that those would be really hard games to update. So yeah, I think it's possible, but I believed it's possible for the past 5 years, and there's just been nothing. So I don't know what the delay would be. I've read that they're doing it. I've read that they're done with it, but nothing ever seems to happen. So I'm just, being cautiously optimistic and wondering if pushing all this out first is some kind of indication that that's what's happening. Or maybe something completely new. I don't know.
Could be. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed because that does sound very exciting. Yeah. This story sounds interesting. And probably a little emotional in terms of switching sides. I wonder if the character that you play as, being on the opposing team to who we've previously worked with in terms of the Warriors, I wonder if they have any memory of being their allies and their friends, or if it's completely flipped and they just see them through kind of venomous enemy eyes.
From the trailer, it looks like I'm going to say he, because that's who they had in the trailer. I'm going to say that he does, because there seemed to be confusion on his part as he was meeting people and having to fight people and all that. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Is like he wakes up and is in this alternate universe or this alternate reality. They explained to him, we woke you up. So it sort of sounds like the beginning of actual Engage, but just with a different scenario. So it's just kind of twisting it, which in some ways will be kind of cool, but in other ways it seems a little bit cheap. Like it's the same people and the same story. We're just on the other side now. I would have liked something completely different, like they did with Three Houses, where we've got this whole new house that was underground and it's a new area to explore. And they brought in like 8 or 9 new characters. It felt like something that was separate, but very much part of it, as opposed to we're taking the exact same thing, flipping it over and letting you guys have fun. Wow. And it'll be fun. I'm not knocking it that much. It's Fire Emblem Engage, and it was a great game.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully there's something in there that they haven't revealed that'll just make it that much more interesting.
Sounds very interesting. What did you reviewed this game? What did you end up rating it out of 10?
I believe, I have to go back. It was either a 9 or a 9.5.
Yeah.
And that's because I've been playing Fire Emblem games for a very long time. I go all the way back. I started with Radiant Dawn. And once I realized that I was getting into that, I went back to Path of Radiance. Because at the time you could, piece together. And in fact, it's kind of funny. I ended up getting the entire package. I got the GameCube box, the GameCube manual, and the GameCube game all separately.
Wow.
I bought the box by itself off eBay. I bought the game at a GameStop without, just the generic package. And then it may still be a website that literally sold nothing but instruction manuals for games.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
I bought that individually. And I think the last time I was on eBay, and let me pull this, well, I won't bother, but it was up to about $200 or $300 for this package on eBay for Path of Radiance.
And do you still have it?
I do, and I'm not selling it. It's in my collection. If we were on video, I'd show you my shelves of Flash Gordon and Fire Emblem.
Nice. That's really cool.
I got a bookshelf dedicated to just those two.
Awesome.
But so I started back then I went back and played all the Game Boy games, all the DS games. I've bought the Japanese release. I can't remember what it's called. It was the follow-up to Shadow Dragon that they never released in the US. I have the Japanese box, and I've played it with emulation on my Macintosh. So that's how into this I am.
Yeah, true fan.
I preferred the games when it just focused entirely on the battles. You had characters and there were relationships, but those just kind of were little tangents off of the combat. That apparently wasn't working. The franchise was going to die, as people know. And then they released Fire Emblem Awakening, where they brought in all the social aspects, and suddenly the game exploded. It was huge. And so that's the way they pushed since then, is with more of the interactions and little mini games and things like that. And that's fine. If that's what it took to keep Fire Emblem around, I'm all for it. I'm not knocking that at all. My preference is I just want the turn-based combat. And that's more of what this did. You had those social elements, but they weren't nearly as important or as invasive as they were in Three Houses. So you can more quickly get onto the battlefield and maximize your characters and give them the right items and go into combat and work really hard to keep these people alive. And I mentioned in the review, for me, it was a 9.5 out of 10 because it's gotten back to what I like out of Fire Emblem. But if you came in on Three Houses or Awakening and that's what you want, I totally understand why people would have been a bit disappointed and put back by the lack of characterization, because it wasn't quite as interesting. The story was a little perfunctory, but I want combat, and it worked for me, so I loved it.
Yeah, I think it worked really well also.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't quite got the extensive history of Fire Emblem as you do. I love the series, but I got into it a bit later. And one of my favorite ones is probably Awakening. I think it was just a nice, just a big game. Yeah, it had the social stuff, which I did enjoy. But Three Houses for me probably took it too far to that way. Whereas, I mean, it was obviously a very, very good game and I did enjoy it thoroughly. But like you, I did miss that focus on the combat. So Fire Emblem Engage seemed like a true return to form for me. And yeah, I was really happy to see that. I think we kind of expected it from what we'd heard before the release and we were hoping for that. And I think we got what we wanted. So yeah, I was very, very happy with this one. And I still haven't finished it. So when you're saying if you haven't finished it, go and finish it before the DLC, that's me. I haven't finished it. It's on my backlog, unfortunately. So it's tricky to find time. I don't know how you do it. And I think that sort of leads nicely into a conversation about RPGs. You've kind of already given us a very good history of how you got into Fire Emblem, which is super interesting. And I love that you went and did some collecting behind the scenes. Sorry, just to go back to that for 2 seconds. What year did you get into Fire Emblem? That was a GameCube title that obviously you got secondhand. So the game itself was older. What year was it that you got into it? Do you remember?
I'm going to have to look up when Radiant Dawn came out.
Okay.
Because it was Radiant Dawn that did it. It was on the Wii. Okay, that was released in February of 2007 in Japan. Looks like it came out in 2008. November of 2007. So it would have been the following year, would have been around 2008, 2009. I recently gotten the Wii and was just looking at the Wii had been out for a bit, but I was looking through commercials just to find games that I thought looked cool. And honestly, I was completely attracted to the artwork.
Yeah,
that's all. That's the only reason I got. Yeah, I just loved the way the game looked. And so I started playing it and didn't really get into it. Put it aside and then came back to it later. And so now we're maybe in 2009 and it clicked. It totally clicked with me this time. And that's when I put it aside again and went back and got Path of Radiance.
Right. That's awesome. That's really cool. It's funny how that happens sometimes when something doesn't gel immediately. And then when you go back, it's like, yes, this is definitely for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's
and
cool.
Since we're talking about JRPGs too, that's also what got me started on JRPGs. That game totally flipped my whole take on what kind of game I'm into on gaming systems.
Interesting. So Fire Emblem has a lot to say for you then. Like you have a lot to be grateful for in terms of discovering that whole franchise.
Yes. Yeah. I'm to Fire Emblem like a lot of people are to say Mario or Mario, excuse me. Mario or Pokemon or any, something like that. That's Fire Emblem for me.
Brilliant. So can you just explain to maybe listeners who don't know the difference between a JRPG and an RPG?
Depending on who you talk to, you could get into a very big fight about this. For another website I wrote for, I got into a month-long conversation with somebody. Now, this was all via email at the time. Who was furious that I can't remember what game it was, but I was referring to a certain game as a JRPG. And I can't even remember what the argument was. But it really is like when you think of RPGs, games like Mass Effect come to mind, or maybe The Witcher. JRPGs, people immediately think of Final Fantasy or Fire Emblem or something like that. To me, it's just kind of an attitude behind the game. JRPGs generally are about more like big. We're going to like. I just saw it on Twitter recently. Someone posted something. JRPGs will start with a kid in a village that needs to save a kitten, and by the time the game ends, we got to go kill God. That's the scope of a JRPG. To me, it's the look of it. It's usually tactical, turn-based. And there's a lot of big emotion and melancholy and it just this kind of like grand approach to it. Whereas Western RPGs tend to focus more specifically on the action. There will be stories. I mean, there are great stories, like say in the Witcher games, for example. But the action is usually a little more real time combat based. And like I said, that's the way I look at it. I know that there are some people who are going to argue with me and say a JRPG has to be made in Japan. And if it's not made in Japan, it's an RPG. Yeah. But I don't think that's true because there have been a lot of JRPG homages that are made by Western developers, and they're very good. We've seen a lot of those recently with those like retro kind of like old NES Final Fantasy kind of games. So like I said, if someone wants to argue that point, I'm not going to fight back because I'm too old to care. But that's my general take.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Is it a bit like, Champagne is only from the region of Champagne?
Yeah.
France?
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Cool. Oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you. I think, so you're our resident kind of expert in this field. You do a lot of reviews for this genre, JRPGs, probably more so than RPGs now, I'm assuming, based on that definition. So I know you've reviewed it a lot recently. So, for example, are you into Final Fantasy? You mentioned Final Fantasy being one that comes to mind immediately. Is that another series that you're into?
Again, I'm going to get lynched for this, but I have not been able to get into Final Fantasy. It could be because there were so many games out by the time I started that it's just a bit overwhelming. And to go back and play a lot of them, especially the really celebrated ones, you've got to go back to really old systems and really old kind of graphics. And that's fun, for a retro kind of thing. But looking at the volume I'd have to get into, I would say no. I did greatly enjoy Final Fantasy X. Because that one had the kind of combat system, the sort of turn-based combat system I really like. What did I even play it on? Did I play it on the Wii U? Did that come out for the Wii U?
I'm not sure.
Was it the Switch? It might have been the Switch. It might have been early in the time of the Switch. Then there was a sequel to that, which had a different combat system, and I didn't like it as much, at all. I played a bit of Final Fantasy 13 on the PS3. And I did go through, like the iPad for a while, was getting an awful lot of the early Final Fantasy games, and I played through a couple of those, I think 3 and 6. I had people recommend to me, and they're fine, but I'm not the fan of those that most people who are huge into JRPGs would list those as the game that got them going. Because I got in too late, I just don't have that attachment.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what have you been playing lately? What can you tell us? What's happening in the world of JRPGs?
The big one that I just reviewed was Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure. And the Legend of Heroes is another game franchise that's been around for a very long time. But most of the games never hit Nintendo systems, and a lot of them never even got out of Japan. But a few years back, they released the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. For the Switch. It was the first one to come. 1 and 2 were never released for the Switch, and they still haven't been. You can get, like, I've looked up, we have a PS4 now, and I was looking at picking those up and playing them at some time, but they're not available, so the prices have gone up on them a bit, and I just haven't jumped. But so I started with 3, completely missing the story for 1 and 2. They released Trails of Cold Steel 4, and I played that, and both of them were great. I liked them a lot. Now they've gone back and released some games that were originally released for the PSP in the series, which take place in the same universe and have a lot of the same characters. So I've gone back and played those. I just reviewed Trails to Azure, and that was the follow-up to Trails from Zero. 2 games side by side, great games. They're PSP games that have been remastered a bit for the Switch, but they still very much have that old, I'll say chibi, but it's not exactly that. Kind of look, but again, they're very the thing about the Legend of Heroes games is they're all set in this universe with this huge political governmental story about these warring nations and the different factions within them, and then all the betrayal that happens and the loyalties, the relationships. It's very much a relationship story driven character that's really big and really confusing. There's so much to read in these games. Either you can beforehand, they'll give you synopsises that take forever. Every house you go into has a bookshelf. You can click on A, get the story, and you're reading for the next 10 minutes.
Right.
That's probably an exaggeration, but with all the bookshelves that you have to hit, you're definitely going to get up there. But again, really good turn-based combat systems with a lot of little details you can go in, things you can tweak, power-ups, buffs, debuffs that you're adding. If you're into just sitting and thinking about a combat system and how to optimize your party to be able to take out someone you have no business taking out, it's very much that kind of game. And it can be very involving.
How much time have you sunk into it so far, do you think?
That one, I'd have to look. I'm going to say probably around 50 to 60 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
Am I confusing it with something else? I could pull it up on the Switch and see. I had to get through it for the review. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about this genre, I suppose, is that generally they're very lengthy games, which is great. And, if you've got the time, brilliant. I don't currently have the time for these, which I'm missing because I don't know, I sort of used RPGs would have been one of my favorite genres previously, and I definitely enjoy the likes of Fire Emblem Engage, for example, but I don't have that amount of time to put into something when I previously would have had that amount of time, which maybe I'll get back into that when my kids are older, type of thing. I do kind of miss that feeling of really immersing yourself into something very story driven, like you said, you start off very simple with rescuing a kitten or something and you end up saving the world. I think that's a really good kind of description of how these games tend to work. You start off very innocent and it's just in a little village. Obviously then the world is on your shoulders and you become this hero of ages. I'm thinking things like, what is it, like Breath of Fire 2, even Secret of Mana, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those kind of 90s titles are kind of where I was mostly into it, and even early 2000s, things like maybe Dragon Quest, that kind of series. Yeah, there's so much out there to enjoy. I mean, we're talking not only franchises, but in terms of games, there must be hundreds or even thousands to go out and enjoy. So it's not exactly a genre that's shy of content.
And now they're all being released with DLC too. So you put all this time into it, and then they're constantly pumping more content to you. The funny thing about that, like say the Xenoblade Chronicles just released some DLC recently, and I just today posted my review of Atelier Ryza 3, which is another game like this. And after playing that and mastering that game's combat system, go back to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and I have no idea what button's doing what anymore, or what the strategy or the timing is. And I have to relearn all of these things in order to hop around between these games.
They all do things differently, don't they?
yeah, everyone, but that's the fun of it too, is that each one has its own unique battle system that you can learn and master, and some of them are great, some of them not so much. But yeah, I guess I'd say I'm happier when I have one huge JRPG that I could sink 1 to 3 months into. And then the other games that I'm reviewing are smaller games that don't take up that much time, or, you can put aside for a few days and then get back into it and you pick up right where you left off without having to relearn anything. As of late, there have been a lot of JRPGs, big ones coming out. So yeah, I could use a break.
Yeah. Even was it one of the Nintendo Directs that we had, not the February one, but maybe the one before that, I think. It was clear that there was a lot of RPG content coming this year. It was just like trailer after trailer of RPG goodness. And it's like, wow, this is a lot. This is great. This is fantastic for us who love this genre. But it's also, I'm thinking, I can't even try all these games, let alone play them all. So I'll have to be very picky and choosy as to which ones I end up picking up. So I was going to ask that exact question. You've sort of just mentioned it, but with reviews, I was going to say, can you review two at the same time? And it sounds like you can, but it's not ideal.
I'm a little bit lucky in that, we were talking about the kids. My oldest is now off to college, so I'm only managing 2. My youngest goes to bed at 9:30. And my oldest is usually in the basement playing Roblox or Deep Woken or something like that. So my wife and I have reached the point in our relationship, that excellent point where we no longer feel compelled to do things with each other that one of us does not want to do.
Right.
On some nights on the week, she'll go upstairs and watch some shows. I've got the TV and I'm playing video games for a couple hours before I go to bed. I'm up before everyone else on Saturday, so I'll do it then too. Cool. 2 to 3 hours a day, weekends more. And that gives me time to push through a lot of this.
Yeah, right. That's a good balance. Yeah. Nice. Tips on how to do it, how to knock over a JRPG in a shorter amount of time. I think you're
although
right.
The drawback to it is if, like, let's say, Atelier Ryza, you can finish the game in about 40 hours. If you really take your time and explore everything, you're looking at 80. Because I'm pushing to get reviews out within a certain amount of time, I'm taking the shortcuts there. Or like on Trails to Azure, I played the game on easy mode. I usually don't like to do that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but if I'm all about combat, I want the combat to be challenging. I knew this game was going to take a while. I didn't have time to lose battles or for the battles to take forever, so I put it on easy mode and just bullied my way through it and therefore missed out on some of the experience. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it would be nice to play some of these games if I didn't have them for review. Like when Breath of the Wild comes out, I'm not taking that review. Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, well, I assume Justin will take that. He's that's his thing.
I got to take a few months with that and just go at my own pace.
Yeah, that's it. It is tough to review those bigger titles for that very reason, and you did a great job with the likes of Fire Emblem Engage and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 because they are such big titles that need love. Like, you need to really immerse yourself into those worlds.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the other thing with these games, and I find the same issue. Even when I'm not reviewing them, I get distracted very easily. It's very hard for me to not go on a side quest or collect the thing that's there waiting for discovery. So
yeah, if you see a cave, if you see an open cave, you got to go in there.
I know. How can you not? Exactly. So it's tricky. It's a tough balance, but I mean, it's there for a reason. It's obviously we've been conditioned to look for these things like a cave and explore them. It's part of what makes it so enjoyable. So you wouldn't want to change that.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things I like about playing some of these older games, like the retro games or the homages to those, is that they're not quite as long usually. So I could play a JRPG, be done with it in 25 to 35 hours, and feel like I haven't thrown my life away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
How long has it been since I've been kayaking? I haven't been playing too many video games. I'm not outside.
Yeah, summer is coming. Maybe this is the summer of kayaking for Kirk. Kirk's kayaking adventures.
I'll seek a better balance.
We believe in you. Yeah, well, that's great. I think that's a really good summary of RPGs and the genre. I know a lot of people are really into them. So if you're listening to this and you have a favorite RPG, let us know, or JRPG. If you want to debate the definition, don't get mad at us, but please let us know what your definition is.
Yeah, and definitely come to Pure Nintendo because we give JRPGs a lot of love.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that we cover them. And I was also going to say, I love that these kind of previously Japanese-only titles are making their way to us now, because that was one of the frustrations of kind of yesteryear. Like even in the 90s with the Super Nintendo, I'd be reading about all these great RPGs or JRPGs that I couldn't access just because they were only in Japan. Sometimes they wouldn't even make their way to Australia. They might make their way to the US, but they wouldn't make their way here. Like Chrono Trigger was a perfect example. That actually did get a Western release, but not in Australia. And then Secret of Mana 2 was Japan only. So there were lots of titles that, just weren't available to me at all. Yeah. So to see them come out now in various forms is great. It's opened up everything so much. Because it must take a very long time to translate these huge titles. I mean, not just the characters, but even what you're saying about books. It's just, there's so much text to actually translate. It's incredible. So,
it's insane. And they were like, I mentioned the Fire Emblem game, Shadow of Light, Mystery of something. I can't remember which one it was, but I ended up playing all that on my Mac with a fan translation, and I was following its development along, and it was just taking people forever, to get through that. It's a very difficult language to translate Japanese to English.
Yeah, exactly. So earlier you did mention the 3DS. It was, I can't remember which game you mentioned. Oh, Lego City Undercover, the prequel. Yeah. And we kind of just touched on this briefly earlier, that the 3DS and Wii U eShops are closing. Like, by the time this episode launches, it will be today. This episode will be published on the Monday, the 27th, which is the day it closes. So if you're listening, you have very little time. So,
do we have the 27th? When they say it closes on the 27th, like, well, what's the time? Midnight, 6 p.m., 6 a.m.?
I assumed midnight, but that is a really good question. I don't know. That's a good point. And for me, I'm ahead. Like in Australia, I will be publishing this like at 9 p.m. Australian time. So if you're listening in Australia, you'll have even less time. America, it'll be sort of early morning on Monday. Yeah, I don't know. I have to assume it's midnight because that seems logical to me, but does logic enter into it? I don't know. But this is kind of the final. We've been talking about it for a few weeks. I think Trev also joined us on this journey. We've had some really interesting discussions. There's been some amazing discounts. And I did have a quick look just today, actually, to see what was available. And I realized I have an outstanding balance. Like I have $20 odd in my eShop account just waiting to be spent. So I, for one, do need to buy something before Monday. So that's, and we're only recording a day ahead. Like it's Saturday night for you. It's Sunday for me. So I don't have that much time. So, so I'm going to jump on. I know we've talked about Shovel Knight being on there, and Shovel Knight is one I didn't actually ever purchase, even though I really wanted to. And I've seen it and heard about it and read about it and really been interested in it because it's sort of kind of I guess it's a platformer type of genre or what would you call it? Like not a run and gun, but it's kind of that style, I suppose.
Which one?
Shovel Knight.
Oh, I haven't played that.
Yeah, well, me neither. And I think this is the time I need to get it because it's heavily discounted and I've meant to get it for many years. So I think that's one.
And it does get very good reviews. People love that game. Exactly.
Yeah. So that will probably be one I get. I suppose I wanted to ask your opinion on what you think might be next. And I think you touched on that with Fire Emblem in terms of, what's next for that series. But what do you think is next? Do you think they're going to start bringing some of these titles that were exclusive to the 3DS or the Wii U? Do you think we will ever see the light of day for these titles on something like the Switch? Do you think it's game over for them? I mean, it's kind of speculation, but
I think some are going to come through. I mean, they did announce Etrian Odyssey 3. Mm-hmm. Is that the one that they're bringing over? That was a 3DS game. So I believe that there are some developers. I don't know how much Nintendo is going to do it, but I'm willing to bet there are a lot of third-party developers who still want to make money off of these games. And we've known over the past decade or so, maybe a little less than that a lot of these remasters and re-releases of previous games do very well on newer systems, and they should. Just because something's old doesn't mean that new people who weren't alive when that game came out or weren't gaming when that came out wouldn't love to get their hands on it. Ghost Trick is another one that was 3DS and is now coming out for the Switch.
Cool.
So, yeah, I think a lot of them will. I think I don't know if the closure has anything to do with that because I can't imagine that a lot of people were going onto their DS and still buying some. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But, there are obviously more people buying for the Switch now.
Yeah, that's true.
I think if somebody was planning to bring a game over, maybe this gives them more incentive to do it or to hurry up the project that hasn't been announced yet. But yeah, I think we're going to get some, and I hope we do. There are a lot of 3DS games that I really liked and would absolutely buy and play again on the Switch.
Yeah.
Although it's difficult because a lot of them had the dual screen and use that to their advantage or the touch screen. And although you can of course play in handheld mode with the Switch, you do lose a lot of that. So some of these games just aren't conducive to gaming on the TV or on a on a device with just one screen.
That's true. Even the likes of The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, for example, which was developed very much with the 3DS in mind, with the touch screen on the bottom, drawing. In fact, you controlled Link by touching and pulling him across with your stylus, which was, a great way to do it for something different, to try something new, which Nintendo loves to do. But how you would translate that across, you'd have to remove that element and just have him controllable by a D-pad, just like a normal kind of top-down Zelda game. So it completely changed the dynamics of it. Some of the puzzles, even the way you could draw on the map, I mean, you could still probably have a map, but yeah, you're right. Some of those games just maybe won't translate. I don't know how Nintendo will deal with stuff like that. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it would very much have to be on a project by project basis, and the popularity of the game I wouldn't think it would be as important as the actual playability if it were transferred over.
Yeah, so I do see Etrian Odyssey 4 is on the 3DS and Etrian Odyssey Untold. I don't know what number that would be, but those are two that I can see there, and they're 60% off at the moment. Whether or not they're on this, because you said 3, is 4 already available elsewhere?
On the Switch, I don't think so. I think the one that they announced is going to be the first one to hit the Switch.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So they might, bring across the others at some point.
Yeah,
which would be interesting. I did see one interesting thing during the week. So with the closures fast approaching, and everyone's been talking about it, there was a YouTuber who went ahead and purchased every single game that he could. I don't know if you saw this at all, but he did on both the 3DS and the Wii U, and he ended up spending something like $90,000 or something.
How? I have so many questions. I mean, is it one of those things where he's doing, like, spending that money somehow gets him more viewers and therefore he makes that money back because he's done some crazy thing that everyone's going to want to watch? Because, boy, you don't get to play all those, and there are so many places in the world you could go and visit and see and enjoy for $90,000.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, do what you got to do, but
yeah.
All right.
It's incredible, really. I wouldn't even have that much to spend. So I don't know how you could even afford that. So maybe he is a big enough YouTuber that he would have got some kind of return on his investment.
Let's hope so for his sake and the sake of everyone that loves him.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, and maybe he's not the only one. I don't know. He's the only one I've seen, but I haven't seen everyone or everything. So by any means, there might have been people who tried to do that as well, or at least maybe some people just did the 3DS or just did the Wii U. And I think it was, I can't remember now which one. One was like 30, one was like 60,000. I think one was more than the other. Maybe the Wii U was more expensive. I'm not sure, to be honest. But yeah, there was a bit of a difference between the two. It wasn't very evenly split. Okay. So someone could have spent an odd 30 grand on the 3DS, for example, and maybe at a third of the price. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a dedication, I suppose you could say.
It's dedication, love for the games. I hope that he plays them all, and he doesn't do it alphabetically, because I want him to get to a game called Zara, the Fastest Fairy, which we reviewed maybe about a year or two ago, maybe 3 here at Pure Nintendo. It was a late release, and I won't give too much information on the game because it'll get us sidetracked, but anyone who's listening, go on to the 3DS eShop or Pure Nintendo and do a search for Zara, Z-A-R-A, the Fastest Fairy, and and enjoy. We'll just leave it at that.
Love it. Thank you. A final little closure for the eShop.
Yeah,
Zara,
I wish Trevor were here to get his comments on that too.
Who reviewed it? Did you review it? Or did
I
you
reviewed it. Trevor gave it to me. I think he felt he was punishing me or something with this game.
I do vaguely remember this. Yeah,
but I enjoyed it. I think much more than either one of us could have possibly expected.
Very cool. Interesting.
For various reasons.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Very cryptic of you, Kirk, but thank you.
I want people to buy it and play it.
Yeah, okay. I wonder how much it is.
No, it can't be more than $1.99. It may not have been more than that when I reviewed it.
Bargain. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, well, we've got a few minutes left, so let's just talk about some of the games we're playing at the moment. So you've given us a very thorough review of your titles, including those JRPGs. Was there anything else you've been... I wanted to kind of ask, so we've both got birthdays this month, right?
Yes. Yes, we do.
So... for me, my perfect birthday evening was spending the night with my family and my kids and my niece and nephew and my sister. And we got pizza and we played Mario Kart. And that was like the best. That's all I wanted to do. I'm like, my sister said, do you want to go out for dinner? And I said, no, I just want to play Mario Kart with you guys. Come over and we'll have some pizza. So we had a Mario Kart marathon, and I'm proud to say I won. Whether they let me win because it was my birthday, I don't know.
Doesn't matter. Take it.
Doesn't matter. I'll take the win. And I wondered if you had any birthday related or any event, doesn't have to be your birthday, kids' birthdays, whatever, that you tie into gaming at all. Does that ever factor into your celebrations?
Not really. Let's see. I think because we spend a decent amount of time gaming every day, so taking extra time to do it on the birthday. We do have the New Year's Eve tradition. In fact, we even did that. No, we didn't do it. This was the first year where Sophie was out with friends. But the rest of us, we always play Mario Party game. And then whatever other multiplayer games that we happen to have around that we haven't picked up recently. So, as long as the kids are still staying home for New Year's Eve with their boring mom and dad, then then we do that and we have a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. That's a good tradition. We do. Yeah, we have similar things. And we did pull out, strangely enough, after we played Mario Kart, we pulled out Oddballers, which is a game I recently reviewed, which I gave, a modest 6.5 because it does have a lot of user interface issues, but it is fun. So, and my nephew in particular loves it. So I'm like, do you want to play, Cooking Mama or Moving Out or something, these multiplayer games that we like. And she's like, no, not really. I'm like, Oddballers, you liked that last time. Let's play that. So pleased to say that game has got some life and longevity to it because it is entertaining.
Yeah, and it's funny how those are because, like a lot of like you said, you gave it a 6.5, but you still play it and are entertained by it. And those kind of games can become like a staple in one particular family, whereas another's not doing it at all. One of our big ones is Shaun the Sheep, Farmageddon.
Oh, I like Shaun the Sheep, but I haven't played the game.
Yeah, it's a party game. I can't remember what I gave it, but it's stuck. It's one of the games where we reviewed it maybe 3 years ago, and the kids like it, and we pick it up and we'll play it for half an hour at a time, and then not play it for 4 months. But every single time we pull it out and play it again, we just have a blast with it.
Cool. I didn't even know that was a thing. I will have to check that out.
Yeah. Oh, definitely do. Yep.
I do love Shaun the Sheep.
Yeah, and it's very much got that kind of charm to it. Also, that sense of humor. Yeah, cool. if you're a fan of that of Shaun or Aardman at all, any of the Wallace and Gromit stuff, you'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I would definitely be checking that out. I can't believe I missed that. I did not see your review of that, so I'm going to go back and look it up. All the other games I've been playing this week, I mean, I've published a review recently, but I think I talked about that last week, which was Caverns of Mars Recharge, which was really fun as an Atari. Actually, you weren't on last week. Were you familiar with Caverns of Mars?
I was not.
Okay. I wasn't sure because Trevor and I were not. And I think it's like from 1981. So it's, it's a decently aged title. And they've done a good job with the reboot, I suppose, of this. I really liked it.
Yeah, they've done well with those Atari reboots, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Yesterday, I wrote my review up and then I went back and just wanted to test something. And I ended up playing it for another hour. I'm just like, just one more. I just wanted to beat my score and I just kept dying. I'm like, come on. And the other game I got into, which I haven't played for a few months, was Pokemon Violet, because I loved this game over our summer, so over kind of December, January in Australia. That's summertime for us. And we have, I took some time off work with the kids, and I spent a decent amount of time with this game. And then, I went back to work and kids went back to school and I haven't really touched it. Also, because I was beaten by Team Star and it just threw me off, lost my mojo for a bit there. I'm like, come on, what's going on here? So I got back into it just this week. I'm like, I'm going to take on this Team Star. I'm going to beat them. And I did. And I was really proud of myself. And I was telling my son, because it was actually at night after they'd gone to bed, I'm like, I'm just going to sneak in a quick game of Pokemon Violet. And my son's favorite Pokemon is Eevee. So the next day I said, by the way, I finally beat that Team Star. I think it's the fighting Team Star. Mm-hmm. And I said, guess who was my VIP or my MVP Pokemon? And Hayden said, was it Eevee? I'm like, yes, it was Eevee.
Nice.
It was the evolved Eevee, but it was he was the hero. So without him, I would have lost completely. So we were very proud to have Eevee win our battles for us.
Gives you a good connection with your son.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Your appreciation of Eevee.
Yeah, totally. It is a super fun game. I've really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to the DLC. I want to, and this is another thing, just like Fire Emblem, I really want to finish the story before the DLC comes out. Like I said, I think it's not until kind of September-ish, something like that. So I've got a little bit of time, but I do want to finish it. So that's on my to-do list. The other thing I just want to briefly mention is Yoshi's Island, which I didn't pick up. It's on the Switch online already as a Super Nintendo game. And we've been talking about the Mario Kart DLC a lot recently because that's really awesome. And one of the new tracks is based on Yoshi's Island. And Trav and I were saying last week that it made us feel like playing Yoshi's Island. So I decided to do just that because I never actually finished that game back in the day, even though it's really, really cute and really, really fun. It's sort of, everyone knows I love Mario. And this kind of takes the Mario formula and changes it somewhat, like it simplifies it, but then it adds to it. It's just so purely fun. It's just adorable. I love every element of this game, from the music to the visuals. It's just beautiful. And I think if anyone hasn't ever played Yoshi's Island and you're into platformers like Mario, please do yourself a favor and pick it up. Or don't pick it up. It's there. It's on Switch Online. Just go play it. It's there and enjoy. And the next game I'm going to be playing, which I've just started and only touched the surface of really, is Perseverance, which is a visual novel style title. So I'll probably have more to say about that next week. But so far it seems very interesting, very dark, I would say. So I'll see how that goes. Have you ever experienced that? Because I think it's a port, I believe.
I've not. Perseverance specifically?
Mm-hmm.
No,
me neither. So it's interesting so far. I like the visual style. It's kind of a graphic comic style, with some, with these visual novels, you tend to have obviously a lot of text to read, which is fine. And then a kind of image of the characters behind that. And this, it's very static, but there is some kind of movement, which I like. So we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of all for me this week. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about before we kind of close things off?
Well, the two that I'm working on now, I have there were a whole bunch of games released. I think 3 different packages of a game called Ninja Jajamaru, which was
I love the name.
I know it's fantastic. And you hear that name and you get a visual in your head. That's exactly what it is. It was an old game that was never released again outside of Japan. We're looking all the way back maybe to the NES days, and they've now released 3 different packages of these games, one of which was already reviewed. At Pure Nintendo, I think it was called Ninja Jajamaru, the RPG collection.
Yes, that's right.
The one I'm playing is called The Great Yokai Battle Plus Hell Deluxe Edition.
Nice.
Yokai Battle is a new game in the series that was just made, but it's very much a throwback to the kind of games that the others were. And the deluxe edition, again, brings in a collection of other games from the series. So it's taking me a while to get through because it's a lot of games in one package. But I'll have my review of that up pretty soon. And the other one I just got and am trying, speaking of JRPGs and games not coming over, I, for the past year, have been slowly trying to learn Japanese.
Ooh, nice.
I have not subscribed. I purchased Rocket Languages and have been working on that. And a game came in, a review offer for something called Kana Quest, which is an old game that it's kind of a puzzle game that helps you learn the Japanese alphabet, the various characters. So I just started playing that, and we'll have that review up soon to see if it's helping me to pick up that, so I can actually read some Japanese. Learning to speak it and understand it is one thing. Learning to read it is a completely different beast.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. I'm very interested to hear more about that. Both of my kids do Japanese at school.
Wow, they offer
which
that.
is really cool. Yeah, they do. And because my eldest, has been doing it for 3 years now, so he's, getting pretty good at it. I have no idea. I know some simple words.
Well, bring on sometime. Yeah. Maybe we can we can have a very, very quick conversation about whether you can use chopsticks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think I can say, no, I can't even. I'm not even going to try. I would love to know more, though. So I'm definitely interested to hear about how that tutorial game goes. Very interesting. Yep. Yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you very much for being part of the show today, Kirk. It's always fun to talk about all of these interesting things from RPGs to...
Yeah, you too. It's a good time.
Yeah. And thank you, listeners, for giving us a listen. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review. We are on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, and YouTube. So choose your weapon and listen to us there. We're also over on Twitter at Pure Nintendo, and we have our great website that we've mentioned with full of reviews, including many, many JRPGs for those interested, and that is purenintendo.com. We also have a bi-monthly magazine that we put out, and we'd love your support. So if you feel like wanting to read some more in-depth articles from us, you can join us over at patreon.com/purenintendo. And our current issue is imminently on its way out right now, so get on board while you can. Thank you again, Kirk. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah. Until then, game on.